And we are live. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Siskind Sussur weekly stream. We're here with I'm Ari Sauer, here with Greg Siskind and Jeannie Santos. We are all attorneys with the Siskind Sussur law firm. We're here to talk about this week's immigration news, as well as to answer your questions. Just want to tell everybody, those that are watching, you can post your comments on whether you're on YouTube or X or LinkedIn. You can post your comments in the comment section, and we will be able to see them, and we will do our best to get to them. So please share your comments with all of us. And I also want to remind everybody that although we are immigration attorneys, we are this is for educational purposes only, and
we are not your immigration attorneys.
We're not your immigration attorneys, and you should speak with your immigration attorneys or have a consultation with one of us before you rely on any of the information that we provide here. All right.
And I just want to mention, I told people last week I was not going to be on.
That's right. He surprised us.
And it's like I'm in the middle of the ocean, and the internet is surprisingly good here. I just didn't think I would have decent enough internet connection on a ship to be able to do this. But as you can see, the technology has come a long way.
Cool. All right. Jeannie, why don't you guys start off with we've had some interesting changes in the forms today and yesterday. Why don't you tell us about that?
All right. So, USCIS has made some changes to form additions for certain forms so far. They're sort of in the process of changing things. Apparently, they're effective immediately as of March 3rd and 4th, and it appears to have no grace period. So, the forms came out. There was no really prior notice of this, but now they immediately need to be used. So, obviously, that entails, if people had forms half done or basically done but not yet submitted, redoing forms. If people inadvertently send a prior form, they could fall out of status. So, it seems like a small change, but it really could be a big change that affects a lot of people. So basically what they're doing, they're in the process of removing gender identity questions from all forms. This is pursuant to the president's executive order that orders all federal agencies.
Obviously, that's an emergency.
Yes. I can't wait 60 days for that one.
Yeah. So anyway, it's based on that order, and it's sort of like doing what it says to do, which is removing all gender identity. So forms that were previously asked for gender are now asking for the sex of the applicant or beneficiary. The terms they and their have been replaced with his, her, and he, she. And in addition to that, they're also doing the very important change, which, I guess semantics is important, but they're changing the term foreign national or non-citizen back to alien, which is how it was until that was.
Another emergency.
Yes, all sorts of emergencies. So anyway, these new forms have addition dates of January 20th, 2025, again, effective immediately as of March 3rd and March 4th. No grace period seems to be given. I think kind of still unclear, and I think AILA, the American Immigration Lawyers Association, is clarifying with USCIS to see if previous additions will be accepted, given that there was no notice, given the nature of these changes, which, aren't really going to materially change, eligibility or that sort of thing. So anyway, new additions have already been issued for certain forms. They are the I-134, which is a declaration of financial support, a G-325A, which is one to provide biographic information, the I-45, which is your permanent residence green card application, along with a couple supplements that go along with that for different purposes. The I-918, which is for the petition for U non-immigrant status, an I-131 for travel and parole documents, and of course the N-400, for national naturalization. There's a couple forms that haven't yet been updated, but probably should be on your radar that they will be, and immediately, emergency need to be used immediately, which is the I-765, which is used for work authorization, the I-130, which is a petition, family petition for a relative, and the I-90, which is the green card renewal or replacement application. So that's sort of the news. Greg and Ari, I don't know if you have some.
Well, I guess the question is, we had a case that we were discussing where we were able to get FedEx to stop delivery on a petition that was going out. But there are going to be a lot of people who just send things in via regular mail that were no doubt sent a couple days ago. Before before the announcement came out, they're going to arrive after. And as far as we know,
or who sent it out yesterday by FedEx, and
they're going to send those out. They're either going to deny them or send them back. And what is really scary for people is that particularly in the I-45, for some folks, they're out of status now. And they, if they, you have to, whether they are eligible or not to refile it. But if you file and you're not the wrong form, it's going to get rejected. And for a lot of people that are working kind of on deadlines, that's going to be a problem. So I would guess, Ari and Jeannie, there's going to be litigation on this issue. Probably it's going to be somebody who is going to be in that situation where they are going to be, where they're going to face some harm in addition to just the annoyance of having to do it again. Plus, it's also like, what a pain in the neck for USCIS, where now they're going to have to go do all this extra work to send this stuff back, send these applications back that are coming in that have the wrong form. It's just, even just looking at it from a, their point of view, I can't imagine that this is going to be very popular with the people that have to deal with all this new work that they have, of dealing with this. So that's, maybe it wouldn't be so bad if we, we're in a pure e-file system, but we don't have e-filing available for most of those forms. And that's, if it was e-file, it wouldn't matter. They can make the change on the spot and e-file, and you're going to always have the most current form. But as long as they are a backwards agency that's still doing everything by paper, they cannot do this kind of thing without serious consequences for their community. So anyway, not good.
Yeah.
All right. All right. Sorry, I'm losing my notes here. Okay. So we're expecting some additional changes to some of the forms. Jeannie, do you want to tell us about that?
Sure. So also published in the Federal Register, USCIS has proposed a new rule that requires applicants for, immigration-related benefits to disclose their social media identifiers or handles. And this is part of the Trump administration's efforts to implement extreme vetting, pursuant to the Trump's executive order protecting the U.S. from foreign terrorists and other national security and public safety threats. So, in some sort of applications, for example, the immigrant visa application has for a number of years been asking for social media handles. So now this is USCIS proposing to also ask for them on forms. So the proposed rule has been published in the Federal Register and sets a 60-day window, which ends May 5th for public comments on the process, including its necessity, its effectiveness, the burden on applicants, et cetera. And the forms that are going to be collecting these social media handles include, forms filed to request U.S. citizenship, travel documents, permanent residence, asylum, and others. And obviously, if you're giving social media handles to the government, it, indicates that they'll be looking at your social media posts. And, as with many pieces of evidence that can be interpreted in more than one way, we don't know how USCIS will interpret your posts, what they're looking for, what kind of flags, that are concerns that they're looking for. And obviously, depending on their interpretation, it could lead to denials of requests for immigration benefits, I guess privacy concern. I mean, there's a lot to kind of unpack with it. So Greg and Ari probably have thoughts as well.
Well, my thought is that everybody should go ahead and take a look at all their social media listings. USCIS has been looking at social media before, but this is they've done it more to where there's been questions about marriages or things like that. It's not clear how much they're going to use this social media as part of their extreme vetting. If it's going to be everybody's social media gets looked at, and to what extent is unclear. But let me just tell you all that the government does not have a sense of humor. They do not get jokes. So anything that you have that jokes about, drugs, because all even in states where marijuana is legal, it is not legal federally. So if you have any jokes about drugs or any crimes whatsoever, now's the time to go ahead and make sure that's not in your social media.
Yeah, I mean, Ari, I guess one question I have is this is not brand new. I mean, it's brand new for USCIS, but we had this during the Trump administration, the first Trump administration, with the with consular matters. And I just
we still have it with consular matters. We still have to submit that information with consular matters. To what extent they use it, we're not.
That was my question. Have you ever? I mean, I don't think I've ever had a client that had gotten into trouble for something that was said on social media. I'm just curious to sort of, do we have any idea how common this is that they would flag something?
I don't think it is common, but I haven't had it. I haven't seen it happen to us either. But
yeah, I mean, that might be one of these things where look, they're cutting massively resources at State Department, and they did that last time. There's a whole exodus of State Department officers. There's now at some of the consulates, I understand that there's an order to fire up to 20% of their the local hires. This is not the State Department people, but the foreign nationals that they hire to work in the consulates. Well, guess what those people do? I've visited consulates. I've gone in the back. A lot of the local hires are scouring the internet and looking for information on the people that are applying for visas. And when they're cutting, yeah, that's going to cause things to take more time. But it also means that a lot of the things that they could be doing if they had more personnel, like searching social media, are not going to happen. So that will be interesting to see if they if it's more of just a threat to make sure that to intimidate people versus actually scouring the net to look for things that people are saying. We'll see.
All right. Well, Jeannie, do you want to give us we've had some sort of good news, hopefully good news, but why don't you tell us about that?
Rare good news.
Yeah. Well, I think it's always worth, inserting a tiny bit of hope into a despairing moment. So
Right.
The House Democrats are planning an immigration week in which they're going to, consider a couple of immigration-related bills. And so one piece of legislation that was formally introduced is called the American Dream and Promise Act. Probably sounds a little familiar. It's kind of a reintroduction of legislation that didn't make it last time. But anyway, with this legislation, we provide a path to citizenship for young people brought to the U.S. as children. Probably have commonly heard them called dreamers, many of who currently have protection from deportation and work authorization through DACA, or Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals, which was the program introduced by President Obama in 2012. So the Immigration Week is set to be for March 15th. And this legislation could also provide a path to citizenship, it says, for about 2.5 million people is what they're saying, including those given temporary protected status and granted deferred enforcement departure, which allows people to remain in the U.S. beyond their initial authorization to stay here because of home country conditions. Another bill which they said is to be among the ones to be considered is one that would provide a path to citizenship for migrant farm workers. So they seem like very worthy pieces of legislation, but
they are, but that's
kill our dreams, Greg.
Yeah, I'm not. I would tell people not to hold their breath, but it is good that the party is at least emphasizing that they have not forgotten, or as some I think unwise people have suggested, that they should start shifting their positions to be anti-immigrant, because that's what the mood in the country is, even though the election was almost 50-50 on there. And that was but one thing I will say, I was just looking at it, there is an election coming up next year, and there's a pretty good chance that the Democrats, they are only missed the capturing the House by about 3 seats. The Senate is, there are a lot of Republicans who are up next year. There were a ton of Democrats that were up this year, and that's one of the reasons the Democrats lost. But next year it's the tables turn, and that legislation may mean more next year. But certainly, at least the Congress will be in a better position, probably, and they could actually pass some of that legislation potentially next year. But they will. It'll probably be vetoed by Trump, or whatever, if Trump's still the president. I don't know. That guy seems like he's going to have an aneurysm any day now, given how he seems to be upset every day. But it was, that's this. It is important that this stuff gets introduced. I think, there's not a great chance it's going to happen until, it'll be 2 circumstances before the next. Either it'll happen in the next presidential election if the Democrats get the trifecta. There is a good chance that they would probably kill the filibuster the next time that they have a Democratic president. They will probably. It seems like it was trending in that direction. And my guess is that if the Democrats had won the trifecta with Harris and getting the Senate and the House this time, it would have been gone. The way it might happen is if there's some potential immigration compromise package with the president, giving him something that he wants, probably more ability to remove people easily and more quickly. And in exchange, the Democrats might get Dreamer legislation and some of the other ones that you were talking about. I'm not particularly optimistic nor am I sure that's such a great deal. But that would probably be how it would happen for the election. I will flag something just sort of politically that today was noteworthy. There's all this stuff that's in the news, but there is something that let me see if I can screen share for a second. Just show. I want to show.
Are you able to screen share?
Yeah, hang on.
Okay.
I just want to show this one slide. Can you see this?
Yeah, let me add it to stage. There we go.
Okay. This is significant. This is the daily since January 20th. Today was the first day Donald Trump slipped into the negative, or more people disapproving of him than approving. And as you can see, he started out at an 8-point advantage, 8.2%. That's means relatively popular. The president has a honeymoon period at the beginning where they can get a lot of things done. But as you can see, it narrowing and 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 narrowing, and now it is crossed where just slightly. It's actually, I think, it's hold on a second. It was not showing the whole.
It's hovering.
Anyway, no, it's disapprove is ahead by 0.3 now. So that is today is the first day in Donald Trump's presidency where this has happened, and I'm done sharing, so I'm going to click stop sharing. But that means something as far as the, if that number continue, and we haven't even started seeing sort of the repercussions of some of the stuff that's not immigration related that's happening. Like 25% tariffs will turn, double inflation, which people are upset about, into double-digit inflation in this country. We saw the news today that 70,000 VA employees are going to be terminated from their positions. That is going to be very unpopular. We already see what's happening in Ukraine, very unpopular with his own party, as well as the general public. So, what all that has to do with immigration is that that a president has a certain amount of capital and of getting Congress to do things that he wants and being able to get the public to go along with it. And it looks like Trump's capital is pretty much gone. He doesn't have it now. And I would not be surprised if today marks the end of his entire presidency. As far as approval, disapproval, yesterday was the last day in which more people approved of him than disapproved on there. And I would bet that until the end of his administration, that number doesn't reverse itself. That's my prediction. So that matters politically for a lot of things on immigration. And, that's going to, I think, make it hard for him to say that he has the public with him on any of the stuff he's doing. So not going to be reflected in the polls. All right. So, Jeannie, I had a good piece of news for today, which is the case I've talked about before, but the refugee organizations, the non-governmental organizations that basically do most of the work in this country on contract basis of assisting refugees coming to the United States. These are the people that run refugee camps abroad. They are the ones that work with the State Department to arrange the people to get here. And then once they're here, these are the organizations that also help these people resettle in communities and get off to a good start, refugees, when they come to the United States. Donald Trump has been not just at war against refugees, but at war with these organizations. And one of the things that he did, it was very Trump on there, but basically these organizations are owed money because they have provided services for the government, billions of dollars of services that they provided to the government. And then the Trump administration just, I think just to be, jerks, said, we're going to review all this and we're not going to pay you until we feel like paying you. In the meantime, these organizations were already under a lot of financial strain because they're basically being cut off from future revenue. We're being stiffed from the billions that they were already owed. They have been undergoing massive layoffs at these organizations. It's really kind of horrible what's happening inside them. And a judge ordered the Trump administration. First of all, district court judge ordered the Trump administration to pay them. You owe this money, pay it. This is not about the future. This is about services that were already performed. And the Trump administration said no, and we're going to go run to the Supreme Court, which are all our buddies, and they're going to side with us. Well, he went to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court said, no, you have to pay these people. And that came out today, where there were 4 justices who I think are not a surprise. Alito, Thomas, Gorsuch, and Kavanaugh were sided with Trump on here, but the other 5 justices, including 2 that including one that was a Trump appointee, Amy Coney Barrett, they sided with the refugee organization. So that on that happy note, these organizations are going to get their money. I don't know, whether that is, a lot of people are still going to lose their jobs at these organizations, and they're still going to have to kind of figure out how to survive. But what I'm a little concerned about is, these organizations need to be in place because if we want to open up the refugee program again at some point in a future administration, you need to have that infrastructure in place. You need these organizations to exist. You need these operations to continue. So I'm telling all this not just for the obvious reasons, I hope that the government can make it. But also, a lot of these organizations they are appealing to the public for help. They have donation campaigns going. They're working on trying to make up some of the funds with public donations. So if you want to do something that actually people say, what can I do that can make a difference? That's something that you could do that can make a difference, is donate to one of those organizations so that they can keep their infrastructure going. That's it. But that was good news today from the boards.
Yeah, and hopefully there'll be a lot more good news. As a lot of these, I heard somewhere that there's 90 something cases pending, against these executive orders.
Yeah, there's a website, impolicytracking.org.
Oh, we lost.
He's in the middle of the ocean.
That's right. Hopefully he'll be right back. I'm sure that we lost our internet. Okay, well, we're going to continue on. We were talking about a good bill that the House introduced that was introduced in the House, but unfortunately there is a bill that right now that's pending with the House that we're hoping that will be defeated. We talked about this somewhat. Oh, he's back. Let's see.
I know.
Welcome back.
It is. Yeah, I actually
welcome back.
Not my internet connection. I hit the back button by accident.
Oh.
So apologize for that.
Yeah.
Hang on. Let me mute myself.
Medical response team.
You didn't mute yourself.
7. Passenger elevators. I say again, medical response team. Medical response team to deck 7, 7. After passenger elevators by the.
See, I'm able to mute you. I'll unmute you in a moment. But so I was saying that there's a bill that we talked about somewhat last week. Greg, just give me a wave when I can bring you back on. Okay. There was a bill that we were talking about last week.
I had privacy in my room.
That the president was very happy about. It's HR 32. It's called the No Bailout for Sanctuary Cities Act. And it is a bill that would penalize sanctuary cities, remove funding from those cities that are determined to be sanctuary cities. We'd like to ask those of you who can to contact your congressman and let them know that you'd like them to say no, to vote no to HR 32, no bailout for sanctuary cities.
Yeah, I mean, there are several bills that are kind of like that around the country where they're trying to punish cities by depriving them of federal funds if they have certain policies that upset the administration on there, and that's it's not just in the immigration space that's happening, but that is something that is not for an administration and for a party that is in power that claims to be for states' rights, and claims to be against the federal government, basically being in every state and cities, telling them what to do. Seems like when they want to, when they seem to throw those principles in the garbage when it's something that's a policy that they want to push through. They don't seem to like it when the federal government is in your face when it's a policy that they favor. So they might try and be a little more consistent.
Right now, the budget, they a lot of funding. I forget the amount. Some very large amount that's going to ICE.
Well, yeah. Although even in that regard, I think right now they're starting to figure out that they're on shaky ground on a lot of fiscal matters right now, as far as what they're, how much money they're going to get. I think ICE is clearly going to get more money. I don't think they're going to get the kind of money that they're talking about, because at this point the administration is also trying to have a big tax cut, And I think for a lot of people that the fiscal conservatives that are out there, they're not going to be, you know, if they're cutting all these funds, it's not to fund a tax cut. And that's, I think, going to create a big fight in Washington for a while. So we'll see how successful they are. They did get this budget blueprint passed a couple days ago. And the budget blueprint they really only managed to do it by about 2 votes, I think, in the House. So we'll see. There was also just on one sad note, but it also has political implications today, which is there was a Sheila Jackson Lee's successor in Texas in Congress passed away today, and that is it's a Democratic seat. So the Democrats I don't know how it works in Texas as far as how quickly he'll be replaced, but at least for a little while, there's one less vote for the Democrats in the House. And when you're having a House that's this close, that matters.
Yeah. All right. On the next topic, we received news from the Department of State that the EB4 category, that's the employment-based fourth preference category, has run out of visas, which is a big announcement, but given that it's only March and the fiscal year doesn't end until the end of September, and that means that no EB4 petitions are going to be able to be approved, or not the petitions, but no green cards will be able to be issued, or immigrant visas will be able to be issued based on EB4 petitions until October 1st at the earliest.
Yeah, which is it's a big problem for everybody that's in EB4 category, but particularly a big problem for religious workers. The tricky thing in that category are I don't know if you can see what the bulletin says is sort of where they were up to for EB4 religious workers, but you can only be in the R1 category for 5 years. That's the temporary category for religious workers. So we're talking about priests and rabbis and imams that come on an R1 visa, usually after they've been working for a little while. I think you have to be, after they're working for a little while, the I-360 will get filed to get them green cards. But at this point, there's no way that they're going to have a green card. An adjustment application filed before they run out of R1 time. So, and
the numbers were, it was already backlogged to August of 2019.
Right. So, that's a big problem for congregations all over the country and from a lot of different religions. There is legislation pending that's been introduced. I think it's bipartisan even, that would do something similar for R1s. That is the case for H-1Bs, where they would, if you have an I-360 that's been approved, or even just filed for a year, that you would be able to extend your R1s as long as necessary until eventually your I-360 is current. And that's kind of the way it works with H-1Bs, where you can continue extending your H-1B under AC-21, that bill from 25 years ago, that allows H-1Bs who are in backlogs to continue extending. Now, that was not a fix to a bigger problem, which is not enough green cards in a particular category, but it provides some relief to people. I only mentioned one other thing that this is sort of like everybody's got their controversial takes. My controversial take with respect to religious workers is the whole thing, the whole idea of a cap on how many green cards can be issued to religious workers, I think is actually unconstitutional. And there's a Supreme Court case from the 1800s where this issue actually came up, and the Supreme Court agreed that the government could not limit the number of religious workers, or that they could not, that it was a violation of the Establishment Clause for the government to impose limits on saying who a church could hire to lead them, or a synagogue, or whoever. And there was that came up again in the 1920s, and Ari, you may know that I know we talked about this, that there were thousands of lives that were saved for European religious workers who were able to come into the country when they during the Holocaust, because the Congress knew that they couldn't cut that category on there, so that was the exception that they made to the rule. But that was based on the Supreme Court decision, Congress carving out that exception, saying that we know that we can't limit this group because it's a violation of the Constitution. Anyway, come 1990. I think that's when they established the EB. I think that's when they established the quota for the EB4 category, and they kind of forgot that there was actual jurisprudence on this question that had existed from 100 years before. So I don't know. I know there's some litigation right now on the EB4 category and whether this reworking of the way the numbers are counted is constitutional. I've actually sent them some of the information on that old case, the lawyers that are involved in it. But that's my controversial take. I don't think EB4 should have any cap whatsoever. I think it's unconstitutional.
I agree.
At least for religious workers, it might be constitutional for the other parts of that category.
All right. So I just want to remind everybody that we are about to be entering the H-1B lottery season. So if you are someone who is interested in having an H-1B visa,
what's the deadline?
The deadline. Okay, so the period for registration is going to open up this Friday, March 7th at noon Eastern time, and it's going to go until March 24th at noon Eastern time. And so that's going to be the period, and people can start creating. The companies can start creating their accounts, but no one will be able to register until this Friday at noon Eastern time at the earliest. And USCIS is going to run the lottery after the 24th, and they are saying that they are going to let people know that we're chosen. They're going to try and let them know as soon as possible, starting March 31st. So we're not expecting to hear until March 31st, those that are chosen. In our experience, though, not everybody gets told the same day. So
I have a prediction. I predict your odds will be a lot better for the H-1B lottery than they have been in some time for two reasons. One is one of the lawsuits that we filed suit on with Impact Litigation a couple of years ago with the H-1B category. Some people may remember this, is we said that it was being rigged by people who were essentially having multiple employers file for the same person, and that they needed to flip the lottery so that no one person has a better chance than another person based on the number of employers that they could find. And happily, I think our crime credit that our litigation helped to prompt this, but shortly after our litigation, the rules changed, and they have indeed flipped the lottery so that that happened. So that helped for last year's numbers.
Just explain that no matter how many, you can have multiple employers file for you,
right?
But
it's the algorithm. The algorithm will
chosen by person, so you only get one slot in the lottery per person. They did this last year, and they're going to do it again this year. Yeah,
right. That's what we asked. That's what we asked the judge for. USCIS said we will come up with a solution. The judge said, "All right, let's see what they do." And then they have indeed done what we had suggested to the judge that they should do. The second thing that they did that goes into effect this year is they have changed the price for entering the lottery from $10 to $200. So a 20 times
215.
215. That will matter as far as the number of people that are applying, because I think that there was always sort of like, well, $10. What do I have to lose? It's so easy, and it's not a hard thing to file a registration online. So I do think that there will be a reduction in demand for, for filing these things, and I don't know how much it's going to be. We already saw the numbers come down somewhat last year. I think at one point it peaked at like 700,000, which was just crazy. But I would be surprised if it's over. I'm going to guess somewhere around 400,000. I'm guessing this year, maybe less.
Right. And another change they made this year is that you have to have a valid passport in order to get in the registration, a passport or travel document in order to be in the registration. I believe, I don't remember that being a requirement previously. I think this year is the first time they're making that requirement.
Well, I think they did that when they went to this flipping the lottery so that you couldn't be counted more than once, because they're using your passport number as your sort of personal identifier number, so that they know that you can't that if a passport, I mean, I guess in theory, and you're not allowed to present different passports even if you have dual citizenship. Right. It has to be the same one, I think, is the way the rule works. So I think part of it,
if you use different passports and to register more than once, you will be penalized.
Yeah, so that's all about that new rule as far as the way that they're counting. That's a good thing in this case. That it should weed out some of the bogus applications.
All right. And we were able to, not we, USCIS did confirm that if there is a government shutdown, which could potentially happen in the middle of the registration period, that will not affect the H-1B registration. Those will continue, and those will continue to be funded by the fees that the government brings in. So that was a question that we were worried about. But that they're saying that a shutdown will not affect the H-1B registration. So that's good.
So Ari, there was a question about something that is a policy development this week involving this February 28th memorandum that came out, and I don't know if we want to talk about that. I've been perusing it, and it's some of the stuff. I guess this is sort of about USCIS directly issuing NTAs as opposed to ICE issuing NTAs, which is
and it's going to be leading to more NTAs, because it has not been the policy in a lot of these situations that they're talking about. It has not necessarily been the government's policy to either issue an NTA or to refer to.
Tell people what an NTA is.
So an NTA is a notice to appear, and that is the document that officially puts you in immigration proceedings and removal proceedings. So it's the
deportation is what they used to call it.
Deportation, right? And so the way that works is you're issued a notice to appear. And then when that after they give you the notice to appear, at the same time, they will then file that notice to appear with the court. And at that point, you are legally in front of the immigration judge.
So this is going to be a lot easier now to get, with USCIS. I guess ICE used to issue the notice, and then, but it would be typically, but they also are some of the circumstances under which
the circumstances increased. I mean, it makes a difference with the USCIS versus ICE doing it, but it's really more the circumstances that they're doing it, because
like TPS. I mean, I have a memo up.
So TPS is not affected yet. I say it. Not affected by this memo.
Well, hang on. I mean, I think it is on here. It says that. It says it doesn't change the NTA proceedings for TPS, blah blah blah, but then it says that there's somewhere in here it talks about the once TPS has been withdrawn, then all bets are off. on here that it's like, I think it does say in here that if TPS is is withdrawn and that person status, then they could issue the order to them. So they have withdrawn TPS designations for a couple of countries recently, and you can kind of see that this all sort of fits in to what to what a lot of people have been saying, which is that they are going to try and have mass removals of, for starters, Venezuelans and Haitians, and probably other countries coming later. But I think this memo fits into that. They also have, more information here about other circumstances, like when an asylum applicant withdraws an asylum application. That's an example of something that USCIS, like as soon as that happens, if it happens even at a interview, that they could issue the notice to appear right then. Now that sometimes happens anyway, but usually it's ICE that's doing it. Anyway, I think this memo will be something to watch. It's the bottom line, as far as whether this is going to increase that. The other thing I think that's sort of like,
and we had a question about this is the question that Lando, how do you post these questions? There you go. Okay, I'm sorry, I'm learning this system. Greg usually runs it. All right. So, Orlando asks, will the new NTA memo affect immigration overall? Is there a chance that they can reject and send NTA en masse as a policy or strategy? So I think it is definitely going to affect immigration because, this is a scary memo. I got to be honest. And I will say that being issued an NTA is not necessarily the end of everything. You can still bring up a lot of your stuff in front of the judge, but it does make everything a lot messier. And I don't know that we're going to see a policy where they're going to start, rejecting and denying applications so that they can NTA. I would hope we wouldn't see anything like that, at least not as a policy. But there have been, applications get denied. It happens. Even when you have a good application, sometimes they get denied. And this policy that they're going to be issuing NTAs, it's a lot of times when you have an application that's denied, you're in a situation that you can just refile. But if they're issuing NTAs right afterwards, depending on how quickly they do this, that would, complicate matters significantly, even if you're still eligible for the benefit.
Yeah, I mean, this is one thing that may really ramp up the number of people that end up in proceedings. The other one that came out this week or a couple of days ago was, news on the IRS reporting reporting people that are out of status to DHS, and that's represents. First of all, it looks like there are a lot of people that are pushing the IRS that are trying to stop that from happening. But there's a very practical reason why. And I think I've talked about it on the show before, but there's a very practical reason why the IRS does not want to report immigrants to DHS, and that is because they want their money. That is the whole mission of the IRS, is to collect taxes and maximize for the American public the amount of money.
The green card is only going to get so much money into the government, right?
Yeah, so they have always, and they've actually issued public statements in the past saying, do not worry, we will never report your immigration status to other agencies. And and people say, well, you're illegal, you must not pay taxes. But what they don't realize is that a hell of a lot of people pay taxes. First of all, there is one sort of relatively unknown aspect of our employment system in this country, which a lot of those people that are working illegally, they're doing it with bogus Social Security numbers, and they are paying into the Social Security system, into these, for this money that will never actually be collected by them. So there's tens of billions of dollars that are sitting in the Social Security trust funds that are attributable to that. But also they have taxes withheld in some kind in those cases. And then also all the people that are working just, as contractors, forget about the Social Security stuff. They are paying using taxpayer ID numbers on there. So my whole point on it is, like, you can say that's terrible. It's like that's not no way to have a tax system and all that. But that's a lot of money that that may go by if depending on how. And also, if immigrants don't trust the tax system and the tax authorities in this country, I hate to say it, but one of the reasons why the U.S. functions so well compared to a lot of other countries is there's respect for rule of law, and there's respect for the tax system, and there's not everybody. I mean, you go to a lot of countries, and maybe a tenth of the people are paying actually what they owe, and everybody else is basically paying what they can get away with paying on there. In the U.S., it's not the case. In the U.S., people pay their taxes, and we're so even immigrants here illegally pay their taxes. So now I think we're at risk of moving away from that. But that's something that's scaring a lot of people as well. Is this gonna lead DHS right to my door? Is the registration that we talked to last week going to lead DHS right to my door? Is this all these things? And the answer is maybe. The other problem that though is that Ari said it's not the end of the world necessarily to be put in removal proceedings. Right now, there's probably about a 12 to 15 year wait to get in front of a judge, based on the workloads and the number of judges who are leaving. Trump can try and hire a lot. It takes some of that money he's getting from Congress and hiring immigration judges, but they're not going to make much of a dent, particularly when it doesn't compute. They already have this huge backlog. They have judges that are quitting. They are firing judges that don't appear to be politically aligned with their thinking. And then they are adding all of these, potentially millions of people into the removal system. And I see it probably, being more like 20-year waits to get in front of a judge if they really do what they're talking about.
Greg, are you going to throw your hat in for the next time they do a hiring round for judges?
Yeah, I don't think I'd be a good judge. I'm too soft. But that being the case, so that's the thing about it, is that I tell people the most important thing is don't get expedited, don't get removed via expedited removal, which you're not supposed to be removed via expedited removal if you've been in the United States for more than 2 years. But if you don't have the documentation on you to prove it, you could find yourself on an airplane being shipped out of the country or in detention somewhere. So that's the thing that you have to be, your number one goal if you're out of status is if you get picked up, is to get yourself into proceedings and not get yourself removed via the expedited removal option. So you need to be prepared to prove on the spot that you've been in the U.S. at least 2 years. Yeah,
carry with you. I mean, unfortunately, everybody who has any sort of status or any sort of immigration documentation, you need to carry it with you, and that includes permanent residents. Although technically, permanent residents already had a requirement to carry their green card with them at all times, anyways. Most don't, but you need to start carrying with you any immigration documentation you have, as well as proof that if you don't have the immigration documentation showing, for example, a work authorization, or we went through the list last week, and you can go back and watch that video. But if you don't have that documentation, you should be carrying around with you documentation showing that you've been here continuously for the past 2 years at least. Because they're going to presume that you haven't, and if they pick you up, they're not going to give you a chance to do it. So carry that with you at all times, unfortunately. And speaking of the registration, Greg, last week you predicted that it's going to take a while for them to put up the application for the registration system because it's computer.
Am I wrong, or did they put it up? I haven't looked.
The buzz is what we're being told. Ayla has said, and we don't have access to the client's individual accounts, so I have not been able to confirm this yet. But we are being told that there is a registration form that is available through the online accounts. Now, there still has been no statement as to what the deadline for registration is. So I'm not telling people not to register, but at this point, we don't know when you're supposed to register for. So I don't know that if it were me, I'd be rushing out to do it right now till we can figure that out. But that's what I'm hearing. I do hopefully before next week's session, live stream, we'll be able to confirm whether or not that's the case. But yeah, we're being told it's the G325R through the USCIS, your personal USCIS online account. So we'll see.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
All right.
They want to get things done. They get things done.
Yeah, I mean, the bottom line is there are a lot of ways that they can get people into removal proceedings. The bottleneck happens at removal proceedings. I think they can put millions of people into removal proceedings. I don't think it's that hard to find people at work sites and at neighborhoods and all that. That's not the challenge for the government. The challenge is going to be giving people the due process that they're entitled to under the law, and requiring them to go through the removal proceedings. And they have a problem once it gets to that point. So that is that is why people should not panic about this. They have they get put in removal proceedings. Once they're in removal proceedings, it's like the administration is like, good luck trying to work through the 3.5 million people right now, or some ridiculously high number that are in proceedings, and adding all these extra people to that, they got a problem.
All right, I am surprised that we don't have more questions. Here's your chance.
We did not advertise, but hopefully people find.
No, but we've got plenty of people watching. If you have questions about anything we talked about or anything else,
you were so clear.
Yes, exactly. No questions there.
That there was no need for questions. All right.
So once again,
I'm back on land next week. I should be here, and we'll see who joins me. All right. Thank you, Jeannie, for joining us. Jeannie, it was first time for you. Hope we made it easy on you.
Yeah, it was good. I was informed as everyone else watching, so thank you guys. It was a pleasure.
All right. Well, thank you all for joining us. Once again, this is for educational purposes only. Even though we are immigration lawyers, we are not necessarily your immigration lawyer. So do not rely on any of the information presented here without first consulting with a qualified immigration lawyer. If you'd like to consult with one of us, you can go to visalaw.com and you can schedule a consultation with any of our attorneys. All right. Thank you all for joining us.
All right. Thank you. Bye-bye. Have a good night.